let's now turn to some general thoughts and conclusions about the use of these generalizability methods. I think in some ways everyone wants to assume that study results generalize. Often the discussion or conclusion section of a paper sort of talks about that and opines on sort of whether the results might generalize. But until the past 10 or so years, there were very few statistical methods to really sort of investigate this and use data to help probe whether it's plausible or not. So again, sort of there had been lots of kind of hand waving and qualitative statements. But in the past, again, 10 or so years, we have more statistical methods to help quantify and improve external validity. And again, this is true both in terms of study design, but also data and study analysis. I think it's useful to think about recommendations for different groups when interest is in a population average treatment effect. And the first thing I would say is that it's crucial to ensure that a study design is fit for purpose for the question at hand. So not every randomized trial needs to inform a generalizability question. Often at the early stages of an intervention development, it really makes sense to enroll a more restricted set of individuals. You sort of just want to understand, does this work? The methods we've talked about today are relevant when you're really thinking about sort of taking it to a target population and saying, well, it seems to work in this maybe sort of restricted sample. Let's think about what the population impacts would be. And if you are sort of thinking about those population impacts, it's really important to think about those target populations when designing a study and recruiting participants, and sort of thinking about really designing things to enroll the participants that reflect the population of interest. A piece of this is also to just be upfront about the study recruitment procedures and to clearly describe those so that readers can understand who was included and who might not have been included. This also can include documenting the characteristics of study participants. The key thing here too is to consider and measure likely effect moderators, ideally with measures that also are available in the target population data sources. And this is one where the scientific expertise can really help, because the people who really understand the intervention might be able to sort of understand and imagine what the likely effect moderators are. What are the things that might lead to larger or smaller effects? There are also relevant recommendations for sort of the consumers of research evidence. And this is one where I would say that if you do have a target population in mind, pay attention to the similarity or differences of the study participants in a study you might be looking at and your target population. And again, this gets back to whether the study itself reports on that, but I hope that more and more studies will. More broadly, it's also just important to understand the context for a policy decision and how it might differ from the people and places where the studies have been conducted previously. So overall, to think about population average treatment effects, I want you to come away with the idea that careful design is key. If we want to have results that generalize to key populations, we need to design studies accordingly. This includes paying attention to who we recruit and enroll in our studies, and also to the measures that we collect in those studies. And even as a statistician, I would say that thoughtful design is much more important than clever analyses. The data analyses after the fact can only get us so far if the design itself was not done in a way that can really help estimate population average treatment effects. Thank you for joining us for this methods webinar from the Johns Hopkins ALACRITY Center for Health and Longevity in Mental Illness. For more information on the ALACRITY Center and our other methods workshops, you can check out the ALACRITY Center website at www.jhsph.edu/alacrity, or find us on Twitter @HopkinsAlacrity. Thank you so much.